I want to talk about a common mistake that a lot of folks in their 20s are going to make, and even in their 30s. And I've made this mistake quite a few times myself. So let's get into it. Everybody remembers, what happened for almost 5 years ago. I think it's about 5 years ago now, with the whole pandemic and, everything being shut down and businesses getting closed and whatnot. But you also remember that the government gave everyone, $1,200 and a lot more if you had children and whatnot. And I remember around that time, I was in my late 20s. And when I got that money, I wasn't in a really good financial situation. I was kind of like everybody else, just living paycheck to paycheck and just trying to make ends meet and trying to survive. But what I did with that money, I can't remember exactly what I did, but I do remember that I ended up blowing a lot of that money just on worthless things. Some of that went to bills and, necessities, but a good amount of that went to, fun stuff, like stuff for my computer games or whatever. And I was young and dumb. And so I really wasted free money, essentially. I'm older now, more wiser, and I look back and I think to myself, that money could have really been used for something positive, something productive, something that would have gotten me a lot more in the future. And, something as simple as a better microphone for my computer so I can record, or a better camera, better music equipment to make music and sell, but I didn't do that. I essentially just squandered what really was just free money. And in retrospect, I can look back and say, damn, I should have done better. And it happens that's what happens most of the time in life. And especially with men, we make a lot of really dumb decisions when we're younger. And a lot of those decisions happen because we don't have the right guidance, whether it's your parents, whether you didn't have, somebody to really look up to, like a mentor, or, older friends, or, people that are positive in your life that are showing you which direction to go, that's the right direction. And so we kind of just go through life and consistently screw up. And it might not be a big screw up in the short term, but in the long term, you really get screwed and you really play yourself. And one of those ways is blowing all the money you make while you're young, not investing, not saving. And I'm not really even big on saving, unless it's, saving for a rainy day or saving a couple months worth of rent or, bills, necessities, whatnot. But really mainly just investing your money. And people talk about investing, and sometimes they only mention, the stock market or bonds, or invest in real estate and stuff like that. And when you're young, you don't have that kind of money. Like, I never had money to invest in real estate and whatnot. And sure, of course, you don't need a ton of money to invest in the stock market. You can put however much you want in an index fund and it'll grow over time. And that's really what I should have done. But I also should have looked into different methods of making money and investing in tools that would get me to be able to make that type of money. There's this thing that I do, and I've caught myself doing it, and that's why I've started to upload these videos, is over the years, for whatever reason, I've been really good at finding channels that start off extremely small. And I'll find them and subscribe while they're small. They have interesting content, whether it be gaming, cars, music, whatever it is. And I mean, these channels will have 1,000 to 15,000 subscribers when I find them. And, I'll consistently watch the channels grow over time. And a year to 3, 4, 5 years later, these channels almost always are 200 to 1 million subscribers. And I always tell myself, like, wow, I'm so proud that I found these channels when they were young, when they were small. And I've kind of ridden that wave with them, that wave to success. Like, I followed them all the way until they were successful. And the other day I was really thinking to myself, I was like, it's kind of messed up on my end how I watch these other people grow, be consistent with uploading, and eventually get to the point where they're successful on YouTube. And YouTube can, and obviously we all know YouTube pays. The more subscribers, the more views and whatnot you get, the higher your income. And so I've watched all these channels grow and become successful, whereas in the meantime, I've done nothing with that time. And so I want to bring it back to investing. And that's what I mean by investing. Sure, had I invested in the stock market, I would have had some money money, but you're not going to pull that money out of the stock market. That's for whenever you're old and you're trying to retire and whatnot. But let's say I invested in a better computer. Let's say I invested in a better microphone, a better camera. I invested in some type of learning class or whatever on how to upload, how to edit, how to use the editing software, how to market my channel or whatever it is. And at the same time those channels were growing, I would be growing as well. But instead of me growing, I'm over here watching someone else grow, and I'm clapping for them. And I was a part of this channel while they were young and whatnot. And I could have been doing the same exact thing, but I didn't. And so here I am today, finally getting into that rotation of trying to be consistent, trying to put out whatever I feel like is informative and just give the listeners, my viewers, something to take away from, something positive to take away from, and hopefully not make that same mistake I made, because it kind of sucks being in your early 30s, looking back at the way you've lived, the choices you've made, where you messed up, and knowing you can't do anything about that, and constantly saying to yourself, like, man, I really wish I would have known this, or I really wish I would have did this. It's a terrible feeling to have. It's almost like, imagine you're watching a movie, but let's say you've watched that movie 2 or 3 times, and so you know how it's going to end. You know that the characters in the movie are about to get in some type of sticky situation, and like what's coming, but you can't speak to that character in the movie. That's almost the way I feel anytime I'm, just reflecting back on my life. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like I'm in a movie watching myself, and I'm trying to talk to myself, but I can't. And so to the younger folks out there, and even if you're, and I don't want to say younger as if, your early 30s are old. I know everybody, when you're in your 20s, you look at 30-year-olds and you're like, oh, those guys are so old. But realistically, once you hit 30, you're going to realize, like, damn, I still have so much life to live. Like, your early 30s is almost like your early 20s. If we're being honest, you're just starting over. But either way, to whoever's watching, man, really start on trying to invest in yourself and invest in a way to where you can better your life, whether it be physically, financially, mentally. And I'm going to speak specifically on financially because, I'll be honest, money is a lot. And I know people say money won't make you happy. That's absolutely bullshit. Of course it will. The more money you have, the more freedom you have. And it's really your freedom is what brings you happiness. Your freedom to do what you want, when you want, where you want. You're not stuck. You're not tied down. You're not worried about finances. You're not worried about being able to, keep a roof over your head or whatnot. And it sucks to constantly have to chase money, especially when you need it the most. The worst time to want money is whenever you absolutely need it. And so, yeah, if you're young, man, if you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, find something that you feel like will bring you a lot of income. And it doesn't really necessarily have to be a lot of income, but consistent and reliable income. Start on that and be consistent with it. You got to be disciplined with it. You can't watch other people grow and exceed in life while you cheer them on. And there's nothing with cheering people on. I'm not saying for you to be bitter, for you to be cold or jealous or whatnot, but imagine watching somebody run a race. You're in the same race. You can finish the line with them, but instead you sit back and just watch them finish. That's almost the way I feel watching myself, or reviewing my life and the decisions I made and watching other people exceed while I sit on the sideline and clap for them. It gets to a point where you just can't sit on that sideline no more. Be consistent, find something that makes you happy, find something that brings you income. I know people are all into fashion and clothes, cars and whatnot. And all these things are temporary. They all get old, they all get stale. You move on from it, it doesn't matter. Do the thing that actually matters and really try to grow and invest in anything that'll bring you more wealth. So I just wanted to share that. I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.